Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Basement. Thank you, and you, and you, and you, and you for joining me today. My subscriber base is now almost to 1,000, and I've never been doing this to gain great fortune or fame, but I must say that I'm kind of flattered that there's 922 of you who've decided to subscribe, and I appreciate that, and I hope that I will continue in this video to provide you with useful, insightful information. So it's worth your time to watch my rambling videos. So without much further ado, I think I've got some kind of keen insights. I've been processing kind of what's gone on this week and what I think's going on with precious metals, and I'm going to share that with you right now. First off, yeah, it's been a painful week. I was at Six Flags today riding roller coasters, and that's what investing in precious metal, mining stocks feels like lately. I mean, we were like in September, we were at a low, and then for about 6 weeks, we went up, right? Like mid November, a lot of us were back, ATH at the highs. And then, like Lucy in the Charlie Brown cartoons pulls the football away from Charlie Brown and boom, back down to lows. And it's not easy to deal with. Nobody likes it. And my thought on that would be this, that these what I would call painful teases, or as Lawrence Lepard calls it, battered bull syndrome in the precious metal mining stock investment arena. Like, we've been beat up. Like, all the weak people are all the sellers. This is my thought. I'm going to put a positive spin on this for you. That, like, if you're still in at this point, you're pretty damn tough. And the people that are still in are really committed. And all the weak hands, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, 2 or 3 times ago when things started to get better and then the rug got pulled out from underneath us, I thought, how could this happen again? How can this continue to happen? And it really stinks, but I think what happens during situations like that is that the weak hands get shaken out, so that the people that remain, that are holding the stocks, I hope, and I think, are people that have strong conviction and are willing to hold on to things. Like, the weaklings have been, the weak leaves have been shaken off the tree. The ones that are still around are still kind of strong. So, if you're still hanging in there, you're one of the strong ones. Just some perspective. I think since mid-November, when our most recent high was, to now, gold's only down like what? I don't know. It depends where we're going to measure it, like 4 or 5%. But the GDXJ and the GDX are down like 20% or more, or close to that. So this kind of downdraft we've seen in the precious metal mining stocks has been kind of really exaggerated. And man, it was consistent. It was like 2 weeks of pain for us. Third thing, I've heard a couple people say this. We could sit here for hours and talk about all the fundamental underlying reasons why we think that gold is going to shine over the next, let's say, months or years. All the different, the debt, the deficit, geopolitical risk, whatever. There's a plethora of things we can talk about. I've heard several people say this, and I think it's the best way to sum it up. All the twisted roads lead back to gold, meaning that no matter how you look at all these different underlying factors and play them against one another and everything else, that in the end, and there's no guarantee, but in the end, it seems like most likely all those twisted roads lead back to gold. Another positive lately, central banks have been buying gold. Ireland, Singapore, and one other country that I can't remember right now. But some of the major central banks are back in the market buying gold. Um, Something else that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but that I find interesting too, is that I know the Chinese, not just the Chinese government, because we know they stockpile a ton of gold, but the Chinese populace, the general people in Asia, Asians are, Americans have been brainwashed against the idea of investing in precious metals, except for us, the few, the proud, the precious metal investors. But in Asia, they're like, it's commonplace for people to buy gold and silver, and I think even in parts of Europe, I think like in Germany, other places, it's much more popular. But anyway, back to China. In China, they're having all these real estate problems, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I've kind of heard it alluded to. And it would make sense to me that now that their real estate market, because that was where a lot of people also put their money, was into real estate. Now that their real estate market is kind of imploding, people are moving back toward precious metals. So we're seeing more and more demand for precious metals, I think, on an international basis. There's Alistair McLeod guy, I just heard him the other night talking about, that, like, I don't know, these big distributors or can't find gold or can't find the big chunks of gold. I was at my LCS yesterday, just for fun. I went, we have a big coin shop here in St. Louis. I won't name their name, but it's a big, big, big precious metal and coin dealer shop here in St. Louis. A big one, okay? St. Louis is actually a big city, believe it or not. Anyway, I was talking to them, and I asked the guy, they don't have much, right? They've got some gold, they've got some silver. They always have these Australian kangaroos. It's about the only coin. And, if you want to spend $35 for our $32 or whatever it is, ridiculously high for a, whatever that, Silver Eagle or American. I don't ever buy them. The U.S. Mint silver coin, Silver Eagle. Yeah. Anyway, that's about all they have. They didn't have any bar. They have like hardly no silver, any silver, and they don't have a lot of gold either. And I asked them, I said, the guy, here's how he explained it to me. He said in normal times, let's say before COVID-ish time frame, he said about 40% of what we would sell to the public was gold and silver that we had bought from the public. People coming in that wanted to cash out their silver or gold. That's where they would get about 30 to 40% of what they would sell at any given time. He said now there's nobody coming in to sell their silver and gold, so they're only getting about, let's say, 3 or 4% of the gold and silver that they have for sale comes from customers coming in to sell. So there's just continued demand for precious metals. And I think, that will eventually has to be reflected in the underlying price of the metals. I don't want to bash Bitcoin, but the other thing that I think could help precious metals going forward, we had Bitcoin kind of crash again this weekend. I think it went down to 42,000. Right before I filmed this, I checked, and it was up to like 49,000. But, this whole idea of, I think a lot of people have been educated on in a nutshell, the dangers of fiat currencies thanks to Bitcoin. So that's a positive. A lot of Bitcoin people are anti-gold, right? A lot of gold people are anti-Bitcoin. We know that to be a fact. But for people to say that Bitcoin is a inflation hedge, I call bullcrap. It's not an inflation. Well, sure, maybe it beats inflation. That's great. But it's a speculation at this point. Maybe at some point in the future, but if you look at a chart of Bitcoin and it's only been around for such a short period of time, you can't tell me that it's a inflation hedge, okay? And it's not a risk-off hedge. It's a risk asset. Whenever the big market sell-offs, the price of Bitcoin goes down. Something positive I saw for gold, even on Friday, was that as the market went down, gold went up. And that was more traditionally the case with gold, and I think we're going to see that more going forward. The final thing I'll say about Bitcoin is, you know, people are always saying, "Oh, well, now the big banks are embracing it, and big business is embracing it." Well, again, I call BS, because you can look at, you know, the dot-com stocks during the tech bubble, where Wall Street embraced them and was more than happy to sell them to their and suggest them to their clients. You know, you can look at the mortgage-backed securities, same thing, before the great financial crisis, where the big banks were embracing these mortgage-backed securities and were happy to sell them to people. They were a bunch of crap, okay? And you can look at, during the 80s, the junk bonds. You know, I don't really remember that. I was a kid, but it was the same thing, right? The big banks, this new thing, junk bonds, and they were, you know, this great investment and blah, blah, blah. Well, they wound up, a lot of them being worthless. And again, it was big Wall Street banks that were embracing them and happy to sell them to their clients. So, you know, I don't, I'm not a Bitcoin hater. I think it's interesting. I looked at it 10 years ago, to be honest with you, and of course, I wish I'd bought at that point. But for it to become what it's become, and for people to say that it's going to, let's say, replace something like gold, I'm very skeptical. And I think that actually, in some ways, as cryptocurrencies are kind of flushed out, which I believe is going to happen here over the next 2 or 3 years, not go away completely, you know, but it kind of gets flushed out. I think that can actually provide some bullish support for gold. Just my thoughts. I appreciate you watching. Don't make any investment decisions or relationship decisions or any decisions based upon what I shared with you today. But I do appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great day.